From a Lectio Divina of Pope Benedict XVI on baptism, June 11th, 2012. Let us now take a look at the sacramental rite, so that we may understand even more precisely what baptism is. This rite, like the rite of almost all the sacraments, is made up of two elements: matter, water, and the Word. This is very important. Christianity is not something purely spiritual, something only subjective, emotional, of the will, of ideas. It is a cosmic reality. God is the creator of all matter. Matter enters Christianity, and it is only in this great context of matter and spirit together that we are Christians. It is therefore very important that matter be part of our faith, that the body be part of our faith. Faith is not purely spiritual, but this is how God inserts us into the whole reality of the cosmos and transforms the cosmos, draws it to himself. Moreover, with this material element, water, not only does a basic element of the cosmos enter, a fundamental matter created by God, but also the entire symbolism of religions, because in all religions, water has something to say. The journey of religions, this quest for God in different ways, even if they are mistaken, but always seeking God, is assumed in the sacrament. The other religions, with their journey to God, are present and are assumed, and thus the world is summed up. The whole search for God that is expressed in the symbols of religions, and especially, of course, in the symbolism of the Old Testament, which in this way becomes present, with all its experiences of salvation and of God's goodness. We shall come back to this point. The other element is the Word. This Word is presented in three elements: renunciations, promises, and invocations. It is consequently important that these words not be only words, but also a path of life. In them a decision is made. In these words, the whole process of our baptism is present, both pre-baptismal and post-baptismal. Hence, with these words, and also with symbols, baptism extends to the whole of our life. This reality of the promises, of the renunciations, of the invocations, is a reality that endures throughout our life, since we are constantly on a baptismal journey, on a catechumenal journey, through these words and through the realization of these words. The sacrament of baptism is not an act that lasts an hour. Rather, it is a reality of our whole life, a journey of our whole life. In fact, behind it is also the doctrine of the two ways that was fundamental in early Christianity: a way to which we say no, and a way to which we say yes. Let us begin with the first part, the renunciations. These are three, and I shall take the second one first. Do you reject the glamour of evil and refuse to be mastered by sin? What is this glamour of evil? In the early church, and for centuries to come, the words here were, "Dost thou renounce the devil and all his works, the vain pomp and glory of the world?" And we know today what was intended with these words: the pomp of the devil. Above all, the pomp of the devil meant the great bloody spectacles in which cruelty became amusement, in which killing men became something to be watched, a show, the life and death of a man. These bloody spectacles, this amusement of evil, is the pomp of the devil, in which he appears with seeming beauty, but in fact with all his cruelty. However, beyond this immediate meaning of the phrase, pomp of the devil, there was a wish to speak of a type of culture, a way of life, in which it is not truth but appearances that count. Truth is not sought but effect, sensation. And under the pretext of truth, men were actually destroyed. There was a desire to destroy, and people wished to create themselves alone as victorious. This renunciation was therefore very real. It was the rejection of a type of culture that is an anti-culture, against Christ and against God. The option was against a culture that, in St. John's Gospel, is called kosmos hutos, this world. With this world, John and Jesus are not, of course, referring to God's creation or to man as such, but to a certain creature that is dominant and imposes itself as if this were the world, and as if this were the way of life imposed. I now leave each one of you to reflect on this pomp of the devil, on this culture to which we say no. In fact, being baptized means, essentially, being emancipated, being freed from this culture. Today, too, we know a type of culture in which truth does not count, even if apparently people wish to have the whole truth appear. Only the sensation counts, and the spirit of calumny and destruction. It is a culture that does not seek goodness, whose moralism is in reality a mask to confuse people, to create confusion and destruction. We say no to this culture, in which falsehood is presented in the guise of truth and information, against this culture that seeks only well-being and denies God. Moreover, from so many Psalms, we are familiar with this opposition of a culture which seems untouchable by all the evils of the world, puts self above everyone, above God, whereas it is, in fact, a culture of evil, a dominion of evil. Thus, the decision of baptism, of this part of the catechumenal journey which lasts throughout our life, is precisely this no, said and acted upon again and again every day, even with sacrifices that are the price of opposing the culture prevalent in many places, even though it is imposed as if it were the world, this world. It is not true, and there are also many people who really desire the truth. Consequently, we switch to the first renunciation. Do you reject sin so as to live in the freedom of God's children? Today, freedom and Christian life, the observance of God's commandments, go in opposite directions. Being Christian is like a form of slavery. Freedom is being emancipated from the Christian faith, emancipated, all things considered, from God. To many people, the word sin seems almost ridiculous, because they say, how can that be? We cannot offend God. God is so great. What does it matter to God if I make a small mistake? We cannot offend God. His concern for us is too great for us to offend him. This seems true, but it is not true. God made himself vulnerable. In the crucified Christ, we see that God is vulnerability. God's love is his caring for man. God's love means that our first concern must be not to hurt or destroy his love, not to do anything against his love, for otherwise we also live against ourselves and against our freedom. And, in reality, this seeming liberty and emancipation from God immediately becomes a slavery to the many dictatorships of the time that require guidance if they are to be deemed worthy of the time. And lastly, do you reject Satan? This tells us that there is a yes to God and a no to the power of the evil one, who coordinates all these activities and wishes to set himself up as a god of this world, as St. John says further. However, he is not God. He is only the adversary, and we do not submit to his power. We say no because we say yes, a fundamental yes, the yes of love and of truth. These three renunciations were accompanied in the ancient baptismal rite by three immersions: immersion in water as symbol of death, of a no, which is really the death of one type of life and resurrection to another life;